Hey guys, what's up? It's Jordan here. So first off, I want to thank you for stopping by the channel. If this is your first time, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification button if you want to see my new videos when I make them. So today, taking a more advanced approach at looking and doing a review on this. This is the Canon EOS Rebel SL3. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so this is my secondary body, or my secondary shooter. I started off with a Canon Rebel T7. I needed a secondary body with higher frame rates. Basically just something to kind of like throw in a bag. Used as a video camera more than a stills camera. So first off, I want to start off by giving you guys some cons of this. So I want to start off with the bad before we get into the good. So basically, the cons on this are 4K. So the 4K is good. The only problem is it crops in the image a lot. So shooting on, like, let's say this 50mm, it crops it in and almost doubles the focal length. So that may be a positive or a negative for some people. It's very unusable, even on a 24mm lens. It crops in so tight that it's almost like shooting on an 80mm. The other con for this is 1080 at 24. I know that there's some people out there that probably enjoy shooting at 24 frames a second. This one does not have that. So you basically get 1080 60 and 1080 30. You get 24 in 4K, but then again, that goes back to the crop image. So take it as it is. I've been shooting more in just 1030, 1080 30, just because easier. I don't know, everything has 1080 at 30. So another downside to this too is when you have the image stabilization on inside of the body, it also crops in the image slightly. So it's not terrible. When you use the enhanced version of the image stabilization, it crops in a lot more. If you're using 4K and you're using the image stabilization, basically you're just going to want to shoot on the widest lens possible, unless you're trying to get like some really intimate detail. So digital image stabilization for videos, so you can do image stabilization for 4K and 1080. It also has 720 on here as well. I rarely use it, but I guess if you wanted smaller file sizes, you could shoot 720. It looks good. It's not as sharp as 1080, and definitely not as sharp as the 4K. But so this has 24 megapixels, 24 megapixel image sensor, APS-C size. So obviously, when you're choosing focal lengths, you have to account for the crop. 50mm times a 1.6 is effectively 80mm for Canon. It's got a flip screen, so very nice, especially if you're trying to do selfies or if you're trying to get low angles. Let's say you're trying to shoot something real low. It's very nice to be able to just kind of flip that out. Or if you're doing vlogs, bam, flip it out, you're good to go. A very simplistic mode dial. So on the top here, you have your manual setting, your aperture priority, shutter priority, program, a full auto scene, and creative modes. I kind of messed with a lot of these the other day. Obviously, aperture and shutter priorities are just what they are. But to be honest, I mean, if you're just getting into photography, or if you're buying this camera or whatever, and you don't really want to mess around with having to learn how to do shutter and ISO and aperture and all that stuff, if you just throw it into auto with the autofocus on the lens, I mean, this takes some really spectacular images. I was playing around with it the other day, and I got some really awesome results. I mean, probably better than I could have just, manually snapped off photos. So it does include a 4K time lapse. Another thing too is with the creative modes and stuff. So there's some usable ones in there. They have like an HDR. Basically, it just takes 3 photos of different exposures and blends them together. I don't believe that it shoots RAW. I think it's only JPEG, but it's a really nice feature, especially if you're trying to get more like detail out of photos. For scene modes, I mean, basically it comes with everything that most every other camera has. So you got portrait, landscape, nightscapes, sports, macro, And then there's an HDR backlight contrast, so basically either it keeps the detail in the highlights or the detail in the shadows. This also shoots HDR video. So with the scene intelligent mode, so this shoots HDR video. It does it in 1080 at 30 frames a second, and basically your ISO and your aperture are all automatic. So it may be a plus or minus depending on what you're looking to get into or what you're looking to do with it. Now I did notice, so I haven't really messed with this a whole bunch, but when you're shooting in video, you can throw this into the creative filters mode, and basically it gives you a lot of different effects that you don't have to do in post processing. So there's like a dream effect, there's an old movie effect, it kind of gives it like an old vintage film look, a memories, so it kind of adds like vignetting and contrast to it. Dramatic black and white, so kind of like an old style noir film, very high contrasted black and white. And then a miniature effect. I'm not really sure exactly what you would use it for, but it's definitely an interesting feature. I think if you had some mountains or some cityscape to shoot from high above, it would probably look pretty cool. This also has a digital zoom, so it's built into the camera body itself. When you're shooting in video, you go in, you pop it into digital zoom. Probably best to use it on a tripod just because there's no image stabilization for that. But it's a very interesting feature, especially let's say if you're at like a national park or something and you're trying to get video of a buffalo or something that's kind of way far out there. It's very neat, kind of a pain to use, but it's there. Like I said, I would probably use it on a tripod. Other than that, so you have on your left side of your camera, so if you're holding it left side, you have a place for a microphone jack input and place for a shutter release cable. And then you have your mini HDMI and a USB, micro USB on here. So, I mean, if you wanted to use a monitor and hook it up, so like if I wanted to use my TV as the monitor, or like a computer screen, or if I had like a small little monitor at the top. So this shoots 5 frames a second in continuous photos. I've done it. It does a pretty good job. A usable ISO from 100 to 25,600. It does expand all the way up to 51,000. Basically closing out this video, if you're looking at the Rebel EOS Rebel SL3, I highly recommend it. This is a really great camera, especially for somebody that kind of wants something that's a little bit more simplistic, that doesn't really want like a Rebel series, like a T Rebel series. Nothing wrong with the T Rebels. I have, like I said, the T7. This one is just a little bit smaller. I love the way that this fits in my hand. It's so ergonomic. I think the total weight of this thing is like 400 grams without a lens, like somewhere around 404 grams, I think it was. So I think if Canon ever makes a EOS Rebel SL4, what I would like to see is 1080 24, 1080 60, maybe even 720 120. I think that would be pretty good. Not that I necessarily need 120. I know that everybody's all up in arms about slow frame rates. I don't know. I mean, to get this cinematic feel, I mean, there are certain times when you can use slow motion, but it shouldn't be every single shot. I think mirrorless would be nice, especially in the same body style, but I kind of feel that that's what like the M50 was. So I definitely love the way that this feels. I mean, this fits so well in my hand. The T7 just feels kind of chunky. It's a little bit more rounded, but this is so simplistic. It's so ergonomic. It's ridiculous. Highly recommend this, especially if you're looking to pick up a second body or if you're just looking for something that's a little bit different. So yeah, that's basically about it. It's a lot smaller, definitely compared to like the T series of the Rebel lineup. So yeah, I'm Jordan. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, also give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.